comment on something generally means that somebody's ducking the responsibility and trying very hard not to perjure themselves, not to put themselves in a position where they're lying, and then will have to perjure themselves. So it's a difficult one. I'd prefer not to comment on that. And Alison Rose is going to have difficulty because if she really was the person who has who briefed the BBC that Coutts dumped Farage because he didn't have enough money, and has then had to wriggle back and confirm that wasn't the case, or that was only partly the case, then she's a liar. And it's very difficult to imagine how a bank can hold its head up when its boss is proven to be a liar. It's very difficult. I mean, we may suspect it, but here it appears to be proven. The bank said one thing; it was then proven to have lied. Now, I'm not a great fan of Farage, and I think he's a very personable individual. I think his background as a youth in Dulwich College betrays some serious problems with racism and xenophobia. I entirely accept that he has changed the way he behaves and what he believes, and that he is not a racist or a xenophobe now, but he certainly tolerates it in others, and and some of his friends are extraordinarily dodgy. We've known this for some time. His attitude to the racist abuse of Humza Yousaf was typical, really, of his ability to tolerate the racism in other people in the European Union with whom he was on very good and affable terms, and indeed with whom he was involved in political association. So Farage is not somebody I'm not going to run to Farage's aid, but I think what this story does is to expose the corruption and the arrogance of the banks. And Coutts is, a bank par excellence, the senior bank in our country, the Queen's Bank. Now, Mahyar Tousi was being interviewed this evening on Jacob Rees-Mogg on GBNews, or is it Talk TV? GBNews, and he sums it up brilliantly. I don't think I could sum it up better. I think I've said almost everything that he's saying there, but he is just tidy and spectacular. And I'd like to just play you that small section of the Jacob Rees-Mogg show just to demonstrate how to put this succinctly, which I'm really not managing to do very well at the moment. But, again, it's not to endorse Rees-Mogg at all. And I'd like to point out there's everything to be said for recognizing the charisma of a presenter and at the same time not accepting the things that they say. People can change their opinions. But you go a long way to find somebody who has the presentation skills of, for example, Rees-Mogg, who is a spectacular TV personality. And Mahyar Tousi is, of course, without equal. I think he is he's a remarkable presenter and an affable and delightful individual. Though I don't in any way endorse a lot of the things that he's got to say. But I do find we're often covering very similar ground, possibly from different directions. But that is the fun of YouTube, and I very much enjoy the debate and the cut and thrust of this sort of online politics.
Big but, actually, and this big but has three parts. Firstly, when it comes to this issue, because you're right, it's an institutional issue, it becomes basically a political, cultural problem. Number one, this whole apology, if they truly cared about Nigel Farage, and in the letter that we saw, it was very nice words, then they would have given him his account back. But they didn't. They said they were going to offer him an alternative arrangement with NatWest. Secondly, this letter that clearly was probably taken half a day or hours to write with the help of expensive lawyers and PR officers and probably ChatGPT. This was about the backlash, especially from the House of Commons, when a number of MPs decided to call for her to resign, said Alison, Dame Alison Rose. And this was clearly about damage control. And thirdly, they were going around creating all these scenarios that, well, this doesn't actually represent our views in terms of the bank. But we've just exposed the managing director of Coutts & Co., who has been exposed as an anti-Brexit, pro-EU rejoin, sort of very wokey, spend more time creating diversity programmes, and this is the problem.
And the issue for Dame Alice is that she sat next to the journalist from the BBC who broke the story, and that points the finger of suspicion at her. She's got to answer this question, was she the source? Because if she is, she cannot stay as the lead banker at the NatWest, can she?
No, that's the thing. When the story broke about that dinner, the response from both the BBC and Coutts & Co. was declining to comment, not denying it, declining, and that makes it even worse.
Whore & Co., here we come.
But it goes beyond what you mentioned about, obviously, the reputational committees and all these groups that used to be reactive. So whatever we call them, the wokey people who infiltrated the system over the last few decades.
That's what you call them.
Yeah, well, no, I call them control freaks, and the authoritarians, control freaks who infiltrate the cultural institutions. But whatever they were in the past until now, they were more reactionary. So they were more worried about, OK, is Nigel Farage part of us, so maybe we should do something. Now, because they haven't been challenged, they are now being proactive. They are now starting wars or battles for no reason. They are the ones who are cancelling people. It's the same thing with the education system and everything else, teachers getting cancelled left, right and centre. Then they haven't been challenged.